What's up, Attack MMA? I'm your host, Zach White. Today we got a very special guest. He's a professional fighter with an undefeated 6-0 record of making his appearance on the Dana White Contender Series on Week 3 on August 22nd. Please welcome Robbie Ring. Robbie, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good, Zach. Glad to be on your show.
Of course, man. And to start off, before we talk about the fight, a lot of people probably don't know about your story. So give them a quick introduction on how and when you originally got into the sport of MMA.
So I started out doing MMA. I started doing traditional martial arts early in life, of around 3 years old. Both of my parents are lifelong martial artists. My mom, she's a black belt in the Chuck Norris fighting systems, and my dad, he's a black belt in Walt Bayless combat jiu-jitsu. So they've ran a gym for a very long time, and so I kind of grew up there. And I had my first MMA fight at 15, and now I turned pro at 20, and now I get a chance to fight on the Contender Series.
Yeah, man, that's great. And you mentioned your parents, and you have both of them as your head coach. So, how special is that to kind of share that bond of MMA with them and have them along the journey with you?
It's been a blessing to have both of my parents. It's something that I just don't share this passion myself, but I also get to share that passion with my mom and dad. And I'm a little biased, of course, but I truly believe that they're two of the best coaches in the fight game. I've had a lot of success, and my parents have built me from the ground up. Everything that I know, I owe to them.
Definitely, man. Of course. And of course, you mentioned that you think there's some of the best coaches out there. And of course, coaches and just in parents in general, they give you kind of like life lessons. So, what would you say are some of the lessons that your parents have taught you that go with both fighting and life in general?
Um, Probably, as far as lessons that my parents taught me, to be disciplined and dedicated. If you're going to try to become good at something, you need to put all of your focus into that. There's been a lot of times in my life where I've had opportunities to maybe pursue another occupation besides fighting. I have a college degree in criminal justice, but I've turned down several job offers because of that discipline that I have and that willingness to want to compete at a high level. And another thing that they do is really keep me humble. There's so many fighters out there that is arrogant, and that's just not me. I've never been that person. And if I ever did start to get that way, my parents were the first to bring me back down to level. So there's a fine line between not being confident in yourself and versus being arrogant. So my parents have really, it's probably the best thing that they taught me is not to be arrogant and remain humble.
Definitely, man. It's a great lesson to learn. And now let's start talking about this fight. What is the story about how this opportunity came about to you? And what was the call like when you got the opportunity to go on Dana White's Contender Series?
Yeah, so my manager, Jason House with Iridium Sports, we've been talking prior to me getting this fight, and he said, Contender Series is this summer. You're on a 6 fight win streak. All of them are finishes. I think that you have a good opportunity to get on that card. And it just happened a little sooner than what I thought that it was going to be. Shot me a text message saying there's a spot opened up on the Contender Series. They want you on there. And I immediately turned to my wife and I said, "It's time. We gotta get to training because this is everything that I've been working for right here."
Yeah. Now, obviously, this is a life-changing opportunity. So, what are the emotions like when you first got that text message that, hey, you're going to be on the Contender Series?
I was very, very excited, and it just goes to show, it's paying off. I've gotten noticed by the UFC matchmakers, Sean Shelby and McMaynard. Like they know my name. They've got me on Dana White's Contender Series, and then in my mind, I'm just like, well, it's time to go show them what I've got. Uh, my mission's not done yet. I want that. I want to put those UFC gloves on and fight for the actual UFC. So it just gave me super motivation to get into the gym and get to work.
Yeah, for sure, man. And to go talk about you a little more, and you kind of have a very interesting fighting style, kind of like an old school fighting style. But for anyone that hasn't seen you fight before, how would you describe yourself and your fighting style?
It's definitely old school. I idolize. I love the new age UFC fighters. But I really enjoy watching the old MMA more. Like Randy Couture. He is one of my favorite fighters of all time. I really grew up just watching him nonstop because my dad's a big fan of Randy Couture, and so I like that style, like taking people down and ground and pounding on them until I feel them start to give up, and then I like to look for a submission. But I can also strike too. I have nothing against standing up. Every fight starts on their feet, so I practice my stand up just as much as I do my ground.
Definitely, man. And on this fight, this is gonna be the first time a lot of people are seeing you, a lot of new eyeballs on you. So does it excite you to know that, hey, a lot of people are gonna see me for the first time and I can make a real impression on a whole new fan base?
Oh yeah, I've always in my area. I've got a really good support system here in the southern part of Virginia and the Appalachian Mountains, but now I'm getting expanded all the way out to the west, down in Florida, and I want people to like me. I want them to see how hard I work at this, and to kind of root for the small town guy. I come from an area with a population of around 20,000 people, and not there's not too many times that you see a guy from a really small town like me make it to the biggest show in the world.
Yeah. And now you mentioned, of course, that you are from a small town. And does it make it a little extra special that you're able to come from a small town where not a lot of people are in the MMA scene and you're able to break through and kind of make an impression, make an impression for yourself and show that, hey, even if you're not from a big town or from where a lot of MMA gyms there are, you can still make it to the big leagues.
Oh yeah, that right there is what really drives me because you see so many fighters, and there's nothing against these guys. They're the American top team fighters, the AKA fighters. They they're in a huge area with a lot of great athletes in those areas. But I'm from a blue collar town where most people are just working a 12-hour factory job, and it just with hard work and perseverance, I've got noticed, and it's my time to show out, not just for me, but for the younger fighters. Like at my parents' gym, we've got a lot of teenagers coming up that I want to show them that, hey, just because we're from this small area, don't mean that we can't make it to the big show.
Definitely, man. You love to hear it. And you will be fighting Luis Pajuelo. So what are your thoughts about your opponent? What do you like about his fighting style and strengths?
So I really enjoy watching Pajuelo fight. I think that he's got a very unique style. It's almost kind of like a street fighting style. He likes to brawl. He likes to stand in the pocket and throw heavy punches. Uh, as far as technically, I feel like I'm much better than him everywhere. I think that I could get him to the ground and kind of have my way with him there, and I think that I'll be able to out technique him on the feet. But he's tough. He presents some challenges for me because all it takes is one punch in this great sport of MMA. That's what keeps it entertaining. But we've been working really hard on exposing his weaknesses and implementing my game plan in this fight.
Sure. And with his skill set in mind, stylistically, how do you see his fight playing out?
Uh, I I'm not shy to say that I'm going to put him on his back and probably land some elbows to his head. I really foresee him getting irritated with me putting him on his back and him making an early mistake in the fight. I feel like I've got a pretty good submission game, especially with my chokes. When he's on the ground, he's going to have to mind his P's and Q's, or I'll find something to finish the fight with.
Yeah, for sure, man. And now this is a Dana White Contender Series, and usually Dana White only signs guys who get the finish. And you are a finisher, as in your pro career, you finished every single one of your fights. So do you feel like you have an advantage as you're someone that always goes to the finish and usually always gets the finish?
Yes, for sure. I tell people all the time the goal of MMA is to get in and get out as quick as possible. So if I'm on the ground and there's an opening there, I'm going to take the opening to get the win. If there's a shot that I see open on the feet and catching with something, I'm going for the kill right there. It's important for me to get a finish. But if a finish doesn't present itself, I just want to show Dana White that I'm constantly looking, like I'm constantly trying to win the fight at all times, even if it did go to a decision.
Yeah, I know you always get to finish, but you also always get to finish in a fast style as often it's under a minute. So, what would you contribute to yourself for being able to get the finish in such a fast time?
Really, I think that it's just my willingness to go for my moves. I feel like in a lot of fights that I watch, UFC, even the regional scene fights here in Virginia, if guys would just really go for their submissions, sometimes they're there. I've been lucky to lock up a few Darce chokes and triangle chokes and things like that early in my fights. And I just feel like if when I put everything together that I have, the opening presents itself, and that's kind of how I've always been. I like to get it done quick. You don't get paid by the hour in a fight; you get paid for the fight. So
Yeah, for sure, man. And of course, with the Contender Series, you get the chance to meet the boss, Dana White. So, how excited are you to be able to shake his hand, meet him, and what do you plan on telling him when you get able to get one-on-one of him?
yeah, I plan on telling him, first off, thank you for the opportunity, and I'll tell the matchmakers that too. I'm going to express how grateful I am to be there and get to fight in front of him, and then I just tell Dana White like, hey man, you got somebody right here that's going to come in and be willing to scrap every single time. And I feel like he'll enjoy hearing that because I love the sport so much that I'm going to go in there and give it my all. I train hard for every single fight that I have, and I'll go in there and fight hard.
Yeah. And with these Contender Series matchups, there's not really a big crowd there, and there's also no walkout music. So, do you think that'll make it a little weird for you?
I think so. Yeah, it's going to be a little different. I was actually talking to one of my teammates about this a few days ago, and I said, well, it's going to be kind of like sparring at the gym on a Friday night because if we don't have the music going, it's a little quiet when everybody's working in there. So I feel like it's going to feel like another day at the gym, which if that's the case, then I should be doing pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, this is the biggest fight of your career. And with that, there's probably a lot of added pressure for you. So, how do you mentally prepare for a fight that there's so much pressure on you for this big opportunity?
I feel like it truly all starts in your mind. You've got to really focus on the good things that'll happen in a fight. If I sit here and imagine negative things happen in the fight, that could become a reality. So every time that I'm laying down and relaxing, getting ready to go to sleep at night, I run through the fight in my head and really focus on the things that I'm going to do and that I'm going to do well. Also, another thing that helps prepare is the hard work that I've been putting in. I mean, this has been the hardest fight camp that I've ever had. Just doing things a lot different that's completely towards this fight for Pajuelo. And that gives you a lot of confidence. That gives you more confidence than anything when, my dad's sitting there putting me through a cardio session where I'm running up stadium stairs for 8 5-minute rounds nonstop. You think about that right before you go out into the cage and you know that you're ready.
Yeah. And on the mental aspect of the game, do you feel like that's a little bit underappreciated and like people don't realize how much mentally prepared you need to be for a fight?
Oh, definitely. It's something that I struggled with at the end of my amateur career. I don't. I was younger. I was 19 years old, and I was feeling too much pressure before every fight that I had to go out there and perform. And I was just getting into my own head. I didn't think that I was as good as a fighter as I probably was at that point. And it got to me. I had a few decisions later in my amateur career against guys that I should have went in there and smashed. So after COVID hit, I really reflected back on that and matured. And then I really started believing in myself a lot more. And just like I was telling you earlier, focusing on things that I'm going to do in the fight that's going to be good for me instead of constantly thinking about things that could possibly happen bad. So it truly does help me. And I would tell any of the younger up and coming fighters at the gym the same exact thing.
Yeah, definitely, man. And from the mental aspect to the physical aspect, I know you said this is a hard training camp, which that's even though it's hard, that's always a good thing. So training camp wise, going a little more depth of what made this training camp so good for you.
Yeah, so we at my parents' gym, Ring Combat Sports, we got a lot of guys in there. Um, a lot of amateur fighters. We've got a few pro fighters, but our amateur guys could go out there and beat a lot of pros right now. Um, they've been Shark Tanking the crap out of me, and what that is when after a guy's been in for a minute, they bring in a fresh guy on you and jump on you. So it gets me dog tired, and then I still have to focus on keeping good technique, finding the finish. Um, Lots of sparring this fight camp, and then what's really elevated is my cardio. We're at pretty high elevation here in Virginia. I'm in the mountains, so I've been running up the mountain, and like I said, we've been going down to the local high school track and been doing lots of sprints and lots of stadium steps, just making sure that I can keep a pace for 3 5-minute rounds like no other fighter ever has. So I think that it's really going to pay off in the end, and my cardio is going to be top notch for this fight.
Definitely, man. And of course, all this hard work is going into becoming a UFC fighters. That's what you're fighting for, that contract. So how much would that mean for you and your family to become a UFC fighter?
Man, I couldn't even express in words how much that would mean to me. I've had this dream of fighting in the UFC since I was 8 years old. Watching fights with my dad, and I vividly remember being 8 years old watching Anderson Silva, and I looked at my dad and said, "I want to do that right there. That's what I want to do." And back then, Dad probably laughed a little bit, told me, "Yeah, you could do it. You could do it, buddy." And now it's became a reality. And my dad, the older I got, he was watching me train, and I remember being about 16. Dad said, "You could really do this, Robbie." He's like, "You have a chance," and I believed him, and it's got me this far. So getting this UFC contract, man, for my family and myself and our gym, it would mean everything to us. I couldn't wait just to hug my dad after and tell him that we did it.
Oh man, that's really great to hear. And my final question for you is, when you get to the UFC, what would be some dream fights that you want to have in the organization?
Oh, this is a good question. So I can make 135 pounds. It's a harder weight
Yeah.
cut for me. So I like fighting at 145 because I don't have to cut as much weight and I can be more comfortable, train harder. But I always tell everybody that my dream fight would probably be Cody Garbrandt. Uh, I really like his style. I think he's a great fighter, but I'm a huge Dominic Cruz fan, and when he beat Dominic Cruz, it left a sore spot in my heart. So I'd like to get my vengeance on Cody Garbrandt and tell Dominic I got your back, man. Uh, another fight that I would love is just because I love this guy and would just love to. It's not even that. Right now I wouldn't want to fight him, but I'm talking later down the road. Max Holloway
Yeah.
would be a dream fight to share the cage with him because he's a legend, man. I mean, I love that guy. He's one of my favorite fighters, and to say that I got to fight Max Holloway would be crazy.
Those are two great options right there. And before we head out, is there anything you want to plug, anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. First off, I'd like to give all the glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I stay very disciplined with my training, but I also stay very disciplined with my faith. And I know that He's always with me and protecting me and keeping me safe while doing this sport. Just a few of my sponsors I want to shout out is a Choice Physical Therapy, Varney Construction, and Chris Fox at Berkshire Hathaway. These people's been with me from the start of my pro career, and they've stuck with me all the way to this point right here. So people that stay with you when you're at the bottom deserve to be right there with you when you're fighting for a UFC contract. And then lastly, I want to thank my beautiful wife and my parents, my coaches, and my team, Ring Combat Sports. They have all made sacrifices for me for this fight camp, gave me their time, and I really am appreciative for them. And then thank you for having me on the show. I really enjoyed it.
Of course, man. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you the best of luck in your upcoming fight. Folks, that'll be all for today. Until next time, peace.